Video games. Hello. It is video games, the making of. Hopefully Mike's fixed since yesterday. Just needed to turn it up. It's really funny how doing technical stuff for streaming is so much like running playtests, because everyone knows there's something wrong and then they kind of tell you what's wrong with it, and it's not what's wrong with it. Like, this is up too high, this is up too low, and it's like, no, it's just the problem is in a totally different place from the way you think it is. Hello, we're doing colony building games today. Colony building games, or kind of building and defense games. Two main games. We've got Tribes, this rather charming Stone Age kind of pixel art game here, and we've also got, what's it called, King's Downfall. And this was one where the dev did sort of openly disclose that the capsule art was AI on this, which I asked people to. But the funny thing is, the capsule art doesn't really look like AI to me, but the in-game art does look quite sort of over-polished and storybookish. But I kind of like the look of this. Looks kind of consistent overall, grid-based, and then we're doing kind of auto-battling, like Avianos style. And then one small game to get to at the end. So we got three. We got two larger games, and then hang on, I'm just got too many tabs open. Too many tabs. Two larger games to look at, and then something that's a little bit more of an experiment called Map Painter 84, which is like a sort of an ASCII strategy game. We'll check that out at the end. We're doing all of the 4X stuff there. Just make sure I've got it downloaded before we get started. If you're new to the channel, if you want to submit a game to this stream, you need to go to the website. There's a form on the website. Yep, I've got Map Painter downloaded. The website is on your screen. You can submit games there. Every Thursday, currently, I do this. We play through some games that are work in progress games. They can't be games that have previously been published. I have to... every so often someone gets angry with me about that, because they're like, why aren't you helping me by promoting my game that I've already released? And I was like, well, it's, you know, the people that watch this channel aren't gamers. The people who watch this channel aren't who you need to promote your game to. You need to reach out to content creators. If you finished your game, you need to reach out to content creators that just generally play games for fun and have an audience of people that like that type of game. This is a channel where most of you who watch it are game developers, and although that might help a little bit with kind of visibility of your project and stuff, it's not really the aim of the channel. So, you know, that's not what we're here for. We're here to look at things while they're still in progress, get some thoughts on them, see if we kind of like the idea, see if we've got any feedback for the developer, all that kind of stuff. Let's check out Tribes. This one is a real-time game. I think the other one is turn-based. We'll see how we get on with this. I think with the two main games we're looking at, the two kind of larger games we're looking at are going to be quite different from each other today. So we're sort of more going by theme than like real kind of gameplay genre here. Tribes, start or settings. Like these little pixel art dudes. We're zoomed in a bit far. You know, when I see pixel art games like this, it's less about the mixels. It's less about the mixels and more the fact that all of the pixel art is just too big for me on my screen. Where do Roblox games sit for you? Roblox games aren't indie games. Roblox games are UGC on a proprietary platform. So one of the things about this channel that I probably, you know, I state this occasionally, but not that regularly, but part of this channel's ethos is that I think a lot of indie developers need to understand that indie games and the indie game audience like certain specific kinds of things. So from a consumer point of view, the label indie game is about certain types of games. It's not just any game that someone made independently. So that's one of the reasons why I don't cover mobile games on this channel. It's one of the reasons I don't cover VR games on this channel. It's also because those are a pain in the ass to stream, both of them, and I don't have a VR rig. But like Roblox is going to kind of fit in the same category of like, that's not really an indie game. It might be independently developed. You've done it on your own, all of that kind of stuff. You know, you're not being paid by a publisher to do it, but that's not what like most people would consider an indie game, which is why the channel explicitly has indie game in the title. Map size. Okay, Fog of War time, tutorial difficulty. I need to be able to turn down the tribe noises on this. I'm going to be the pink tribe. I'm going to be called Boink. If those guys are going to be going all the way through this demo, yeah, there's definitely cool stuff on Roblox. I would advise anyone who's skeptical of the ability of like Roblox to support really cool, interesting game ideas, I would advise they play Doors. It's a horror game. It's way better and more polished than the majority of like famous small-scale indie horror games, and it doesn't look like a Roblox game. I think Doors is a really good case study in like, yes, you can actually make cool stuff with Roblox. It's mainly that the platform has its own sort of culture, and that tends to encourage people to make certain types of things that are like in-jokes with the Roblox community, you know? And that kind of has a impact on what gets made. Look at this beautiful island. Right, there's some, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's some pretty hideous tearing when I zoom up and down on this. And I don't really understand what that is at a technical level, but it looks kind of gross. It's sort of like rippling when I move up and down. Right, select with left, options with 1. Don't know what that is. Oh. I think I just put my tribe somewhere because I didn't know what the icon was, because we just had a weird icon that didn't look like anything in particular. Let's make a watermill. You've told me to make a watermill. I didn't click to put that there. I think I clicked on this interface twice and it clicked through and placed it underneath. I'm gonna quit and restart. That was such a bad start to... No. I don't want to spend ages clarifying the difference between There's a video on my channel called Not All Indie Games Are Indie Games. You can go and read that if you want. There's not a real difference, right? You have to understand there's a difference between what words actually mean and how they're used by different groups of people, right? So for me and for the majority of people that play indie games, when they talk about indie games, they are talking about a particular type of game that doesn't have certain characteristics of like a commercial thing. So like of like a commercially or corporately produced game, right? So for a lot of people, a mobile game that has free-to-play stuff in it wouldn't be an indie game, because that isn't one of the indie game qualities. From a developer's, and this is the whole thing about language being different depending on who's using it, from a developer's point of view, everything they make independently is an indie game, right? So if they make a mobile game full of ads and free-to-play stuff, that's an indie game to them because they made it independently. It's you need to understand that different people use words differently, and I think a lot of people that want to develop games would do well to start by like understanding indie games and what's especially appealing about them before they start making games as well, because you can kind of get into this pity marketing mentality of thinking that people should support you just because you're the little guy, and that's kind of dangerous as well. But there's just not time to really go into all of that stuff in depth, because it's like super like really kind of hard to describe linguistic subtleties going on there. Watch Ace Roller's video about indie games, watch the Pixel a Day video about indie games. There's some really good video essays about like how people define these terms, but I personally, for me, it's just about the discrepancy between what players think an indie game is and what developers think an indie game is. And the developers that do well within indie games tend to be the people that actually make indie games rather than just making whatever the hell they want, you know? That's why I made that video back in December that was talking about indie game genres and why do we have specific genres in indie games. Well, it's that instead of trying to make a smaller version of a AAA game, indie developers have made specific things according to, you know, using their constraints and stuff like that. But this is just like too much to go into detail on a stream. Yeah, there's some really nasty tearing of the camera when we move around zoomed out. So this selects, this one is options. This symbol seems to be where you place your tribe down, but it doesn't tell you that before you do it, which kind of sucks. So I don't know what that is. It looks like a goblet. It looks like a goblet, and I can't really... There's nothing about that that says this is where your tribe is going to go. I'll put them over here. Right, we've zoomed in now. That's where our tribe is. This pink guy is one of our tribe people. Let's make a watermill. Right, it says we're going to make a watermill. I click on that. That says it's a bucket elevator, which is not what I was told we need to build. And none of these things is a watermill. Maybe the bucket elevator is a watermill, but the tutorial text specifically used the term watermill. Kind of see-through. It looks kind of like it hasn't been built yet. Select troops here. Swordman. This UI is really just not functional enough, and I feel like the dev probably knows this. I'm not sure why this is at a stage where you want to playtest this publicly. I know I get a feeling I'm going to be in a grumpy mood today, so I'll just warn you up front. Because I'm tired and stuff. I've been tired all week. But this feels like it should still be on itch. It's got like, there's so many little clunky bits about basic interactions. Like, I just clicked on this guy and I can see it's brought up this other panel underneath here, but it's obscured by this one that's still up from building before. So if I close the build menu, now we can see those units. And now there's just like... it feels kind of like you've rushed to put a tutorial in the game before all of the UX and the menus and stuff in the rest of the game are actually working properly. And that feels like what happens when you're hurrying to get a game out of the door. Because you're like, I must put a tutorial in, that's what the game needs. And it's like, well, I would try and get everything else working to a good standard before you worry about a tutorial, because a tutorial is more about kind of like onboarding players into a game that is already kind of working and good and stuff. Click here to open and close. We've got a to-do list. We've got make a tent, train some troops, save some gold. Let's make some energy, build some defenses. Okay. Watermills generate energy very slowly but constantly. Okay. Complete your task. What's that pointing to? Okay, let's make a tent. I love the pixel art. Music is a little bit intense. Music is a little bit intense. too many different size pixels. Like I'm usually not super stringent about that. It doesn't bother me in most games, but I think when the difference is really pronounced, then it starts to kind of show, because then you're out of like pixel art purist territory and you're into just bad graphic design territory, right? So like if you look at graphic design generally and you look at posters and stuff, you'll notice that things have kind of consistent weights of line. And the problem is when you have like pixels that are massively different in size, it's almost like you're watching, if you were watching The Simpsons and one character was outlined in a very thin line and another character was outlined in a very thick line, that would be a problem as well, right? So it's about visual inconsistency. You know, we've got this line here. This has got much larger pixels around it. I'm not one of those pixel art purists that is like, nothing can rotate, everything must be exactly the same size, but it starts to look really visually jarring if you have too much of it. But yeah, the tutorial feels really ropey. It's telling me to do stuff and then leaving sort of icons and stuff in strange places like this to complete your task. And it feels like the developer has rushed to put a tutorial in before the UX of the rest of the game is really settled. And I think maybe that's, yeah, we're just kind of rushing a little bit here. Right, so we've done a tent. Right? I made a tent. I did it. And it's not checked off. So you've got like a to-do list for me to do here, and it's not really working. Let's train some troops. To train troops, select build button at bottom of screen. And okay, I've done that as well. Congratulations, you finished the tutorial. What the hell is that? Did I finish the tutorial? I don't feel like I've learnt anything. Yeah, the Mixels thing is difficult because like there are people that hate it because they want everything to be exactly perfect, and they're sort of like connoisseurs of very high quality pixel art. But for me, it's just more of a general graphic design thing of like just not having loads of different fonts that are different weights and outlines that are different thicknesses and stuff, because it makes it very hard to like read the screen and see what's important at a given time. But you can see, like, you look at this game, and if we couldn't see any of the interface, the actual pixel art world that we can see here is really, really beautiful. Like, characters, animals are great. This is really, really nice, and I want to play with this part of the game, but this layer, this whole interface is like, well, firstly, it's not functional. Even if we forget about what it looks like, it's not functional. Menus are popping up on top of each other and getting in the way. And before we even get to the tutorial, which, to be honest, feels like it shouldn't be implemented yet, I would generally suggest that you shouldn't be at the point where you're... Let me rewind a little bit. So we've got a video coming out in a couple of weeks on playtesting processes, where I got a bunch of people from our Discord, most of which have made and published more games than I have, to talk about how they playtest, why they playtest, and stuff like that. And early on, generally speaking, early on, you should be doing playtests where you're there to kind of referee the playtest, explain anything if someone gets stuck, really observe what people have a problem with, you know, even if it's just friends and family. And then you only go to the point of doing, like, I guess you would call it a blind playtest, right? A playtest where you're not there, once you've got rid of the major problems early on in development, right? So the reason why I'm saying don't put a tutorial in your game until your game needs a tutorial is that you don't design the tutorial until you've done those early rounds of playtesting and watched people play it. And the problem I'm seeing with this game, which I've seen in quite a few games actually, and I think part of it is just this kind of culture that we have of people just developing a game entirely on their own and then putting it on Steam and kind of hoping it does well. You know, I'm being a little bit uncharitable because this person has sent me the game to do this with and to like critique it, but you shouldn't have a need to implement a tutorial until you've done your early rounds of observed playtesting, because your game isn't going to be played without you there, without you observing the playtest, right? So all of these problems that I'm experiencing that are with the actual menus that are for the core gameplay, nothing to do with the tutorial, those shouldn't be there before we get... Those shouldn't be there. Like, those should be fixed before we get to the point where we're like, okay, now the game needs to be able to teach itself. Now the game needs a tutorial, right? So it feels very rushed, and maybe it's just like this problem we see time and time again of like someone has an idea of all of the things that a video game needs. It needs levels, it needs a tutorial, it needs an economy, it needs all of these things, and they just start doing all of them rather than like making a game that works and then going, okay, the game works, we've tested it with people, all of the core of the game works and is functional and looks good and stuff. Now we're going to work out how to teach people to play the game, because now it's time to give the game to like a larger pool of playtesters who, you know, I'm not there to kind of guide them through it and teach it to them. Okay, continue. It is kind of like the Arcanum music, yeah. It's because Arcanum had like a string quartet, which is quite an unusually small kind of musical arrangement for a video game. Right. So I've got this to-do list, but it doesn't seem to be responding to anything that I do. Like, they're not getting ticked off. So I can drag select these guys, which is good. I've got right click, tell them to go there, tell them to run there. Not sure what these are. I feel a bit like we have a very established set of, you know, how clicking and stuff works in an RTS. The click selecting works, but then we right click and then we open up a menu and we have to left click one of these things, which to me feels like just adding friction and like changing a UX thing that already exists in every RTS anyone has ever played, adding another step to it, which kind of makes it feel a little bit clunky. They've got move, that looks like run. And I don't know what that one is. I think the other thing you can learn from this as well is that before you put a kind of first time user experience tutorial in your game, you need to make sure that all of the things that someone would need to remind them of how to play the game way into the game are in there, right? So one example would be tooltips. When you hover over things, it tells you what they do. That's a much more important feature to get into your game earlier than having like a full step-by-step tutorial of how to play the game, right? Because the step-by-step tutorial only helps people for the first 30 minutes, but the stuff like tooltips and like little info buttons you can click on during the gameplay, that's helpful to people even if they've been playing the game for dozens and dozens of hours. And we've all had that experience where you've got quite a complex game, you haven't played it for a while, you know, you open Slay the Spire and you haven't played it for 2 years and you don't remember what all the keywords on the cards mean, but because they've got that feature where if you hold on something it brings up a tooltip, you can kind of reteach yourself those things. You don't need to like play through an entire tutorial over again. And like I'm seeing lots of things in this game where it's like, okay, we've got 4 icons. The top 2 look very similar. I can kind of intuit that this is maybe faster than this one, but I don't know why we would have a... I can't see any noticeable difference in the behavior when I click on these top 2 buttons with the arrow. We've got these bottom 2 that seem to be... That one seems to be stop. They're not very intuitive icons, and they don't have any kind of text to back up what they do. I would say another thing is that this is supposed to be like, well, I mean, I kind of said it was cave people to start off with, but we've got a windmill immediately. it's not really kind of matching up with all the things I would expect to be doing in this setting. Like, I can't hunt the animals as far as I can see. I've got units I can move around. I don't seem to be able to do anything apart from moving them. Maybe we can make this guy, can we make him go in this 70-year-old human? Can we make them go into the windmill to man it? Because it did tell me that windmills need operating by characters. Don't have any way of like directing them to operate the windmill. But yeah, this string quartet music is like Victorian as well. Like, Martin, what you said in the chat, that's why they used it in Arcanum, because it kind of is chamber music. It's like of a particular time period. So there's lots of weird stuff going on here that doesn't line up in terms of the creative choices. But yeah, these things don't check off as you do them, which is not how a to-do list in a video game generally works. It seems to have given me a list of things to do, but the game isn't tracking whether I've done them or not. That keeps happening as well. Sometimes I click on this and then I go to click on this menu to change to something else, and the click goes through the menu and builds the thing that I wasn't trying to build. Just like bad UX all round. My advice for this developer, or anyone who's making something similar, is start your project by just making a tiny, simple, but very one-to-one clone of the game that of the best game in the class, right? So, okay, you're not going to make StarCraft, you're not going to make Warcraft 3, you're not going to make whatever other big RTS in terms of like scale and scope, but players who come to your game are going to come to it with all the expectations of like how that genre controls, right? Like, a game genre has control conventions, and a lot of the way that this game works doesn't feel like it's rooted in how any other game works. It feels like the developer has just kind of made decisions as they've gone along based on, you know, what they think or what's easiest for them. Game mechanics are a language. Fans of a game genre come to your game knowing all of this language of interaction design that they bring from other games. And if you're making an RTS, okay, it doesn't need to be exactly the same as existing RTSs, but every decision you make, you should be weighing it up and saying, okay, do I make this clicking or this building the same as StarCraft because that's what people know? Do I make it the same as Factorio because that's what people know? And if your answer is no, you need to have a very good reason for not doing it the way that people already understand. This just feels kind of like lots of things thrown together, doesn't really consider like player expectations going into this from the genre, and then creatively we've just got like very, very like difficult to read UI, lots of helper stuff missing, and just kind of poorly implemented stuff where things don't work the way that they should do. Like I said, the actual game world, everything under the UI is really beautiful. If we look at the to-do list as well, we've got save some gold, make some energy. It's not kind of fully lining up. Let's go back to the Steam page for a minute, because yeah, it's like in a Stone Age-like war, stuck on a lush, isolated island. It's down to you to command your tribe to conquer and colonize the island by any means. Tribes offers skirmish multiplayer and a full campaign mode. A Stone Age-like war, but we're not hunting the animals. We're generating electricity. We care about gold. It's like not really aware of what the fantasy of being a Stone Age tribe is, right? And you know, the game that we played 2 days ago, Folk Emerging, was a 4X, different theme, but everything. I'm gonna get it back up again because the developer deserves more props. everything in Folk Emerging would line up with your expectation of what managing a tribe of prehistoric people would involve, what their concerns would be, what the risks and the kind of goals and all of that stuff. Even if you don't know the genre, even if you don't know what a 4X game is, in Folk Emerging, if you just come to it as someone who's interested in prehistoric people, it kind of gives you all of the stuff you would expect, whether you're like an expert in that thing or just someone who's like watched one movie about cavemen at some point. It's all there, right? So the fantasy of the setting is totally realized through the game mechanics and what the game offers. This, if we go back to Tribes, it's a random bunch of stuff. Your first character is like wearing full modern clothes. You've got Victorian Arcanum music that is like a string quartet playing quite modern, so sort of post-Renaissance music, which is more appropriate for like a steampunk or a kind of more recent historical setting. You've got windmills immediately. They're not part of a tech tree that you need to build up to. And I think, yeah, a couple of people's in the chat saying, you know, yeah, Babe said developers are not playing enough video games. Loa said we should normalize prolonged research before prototyping. Yeah, I mean, some of it is, so there's a couple of problems here that we can talk about. And I think Tribes is just one example of this, but I see these all the time. One is that people try to make types of games that they don't actually play, right? So they're not coming to it with that design language that we talked about before. Like a genre of games is a set of conventions, and if you go against the convention, you're making your game harder to understand, right? The game I'm making at the moment, Dirt World, is a weird game. It's like Spelunky mixed with the blueprints, mixed with a load of weird fantasy stuff. It's very weird, but for the platformer element, the main thing that you're doing in the game, I have tried to make the feel and controls of it map very, very closely to Spelunky, because that is the best in class for the specific type of platformer that I'm making. And I've gone back and I've played it. I haven't just like remembered what it was like. I've like read Derek Yu's book about it. I've gone back and played it. And like, if you're making an RTS, you need to do the same thing. You can't just... So the two big problems could be the developer doesn't actually play the genre and never has, or the more common one is the developer played the genre at some point and they're sort of remembering it from a long time ago, but they're not like, you know, just like I learned French for 3 years at school. I can't speak French anymore, right? So that language has gone out of my head. Yeah. Hey, AV, yeah, I should be on Twitch at the same time. I usually am. For 42 by 24 said, what would be the best motivation to make a game? Market gap. You want to play that game, a different game, but better other. I think all of those things at the same time, right? I think when you're trying to evaluate whether something is a good idea, the thing that makes something a better idea than something else is like how many boxes it ticks at once, right? And you do this in project management. Like the last studio I worked at was a big, icky mobile free-to-play studio, but we had like a very good product manager in our team. And one of the things he would do is he would kind of create these rubrics for what we were going to do next. And by rubric, I mean like a sort of a set of criteria to judge whether something was a good idea or not. So you would like have a score for a, what an idea would achieve. Like, okay, so in that case, it would be like, is this idea building on something that we've done that's already successful? Okay, it gets 10 points. Is this idea something that we can do easily in the first iteration? Okay, it gets 5 points. And you kind of score it that way. And you don't obviously have to do it in that kind of level of tedious detail, but I think you can do this in your head. So when you, like, the person in the chat, when you said, what's the best motivation to make a game? Is it the market gap? Is it something you want to play? Is it a different game but better? Right? I wouldn't see it as a binary choice between those things. I would see those factors as being cumulative, right? So I have lots of ideas for games that I want to make, and I would say that the best idea will be one where there is a market gap it's a game I want to play, and it's a better or a different a better version of an existing game or something like that. Those things stack on top of each other. You should probably still make stuff you want to play, because you're going to have to work on it for a long time. And, you see instances like this where, and I think this is very common, we get proud of what we've done because it took a lot of work and it's an undertaking. But like, the foundation of being a good game developer is understanding that the thing you're making is the end user experience, and that the value of what you've done doesn't come from how many hours you spent on it. And that's one of the reasons why you just need to put in the reps, make a bunch of crap, make a bunch of smaller things, because you'll get faster at doing stuff then. And then you'll be less proud at things just because they took you time. And you'll get into this mind state of like, okay, that thing took me time, but I'm quite happy to throw it away because it's not achieved the goal I wanted. Whereas when you're kind of earlier developing games and you're a little bit slower and you can't like take an idea in your head and get it working on the screen very quickly, you start to get sunk cost fallacy in everything you do, right? And that's why it's really, really important to just sort of like acknowledge that you're in a learning phase when you're in a learning phase, rather than thinking that everything you do needs to get finished and published. I know that's not like the sexy romantic thing that people want to hear. I know that like the dominant discourse in game dev YouTube and on Reddit and everything is like, ship everything, yeah, we're all in this together, everyone should ship their games. And I say this as someone who's like, just most of the things I've made in the last 20 years have just been like a tiny little toy that I put up on itch or, demo at a convention and then don't do anything else with. And I think that's a bad habit in its own right as well. But you do need to put the reps in to get good at your technology so that you can do things quicker, because that is what helps you to make things good. Because otherwise you just sort of end up in this state where you've made something, it's not very good, you don't want to change it because it took you weeks and weeks, and that's really just a product of like not having that much practice yet. So you kind of overvalue the work that you put into things rather than the thing that you should value, which is how well does it achieve the goal of making a game that RTS fans sit down and go, yeah, this is a good RTS. Yeah. Something ikigai, but for game dev. Yeah, we say it every day. Bioho said, I make games because if I don't, my brain has a strop at me. Is it the greatest motivation? No. But yeah, I mean, I do relate to that quite a bit. I do stuff because I kind of feel like I'm compelled to do it, and everything else is quite secondary to that, Right, let's check out King's Downfall. This is a turn-based one. It has some auto-battling. Yeah, I think it's a Shigeru Miyamoto quote that comes up in Derek Yu's book on Spelunky, where he says that a good idea is one that solves two problems. And I like that idea of like, you're working on projects, you're working on a game, you have a big list of ideas of things that you'd like to do in that game. Maybe it's like 100 things long, whether it's an actual physical list that you've made or just in the back of your mind. And over time, ideas will become better or worse based on context. It's kind of like, I don't know, let's say you were working on 2 game prototypes, and then you find out that in 6 months' time, there's going to be like a multiplayer co-op games convention near you, and one of your games fits that. So now, working on that game more is a better idea. And it's not a quality of the idea itself, it's a quality of the surrounding situation. Like, what's situationally like the best idea for you to do right now? And it's the same with like which game should you make, like those top level decisions, and it's the same with micro decisions of which feature should you work on next in your game. It's like, okay, well, as you work on your game, you get 3 months in, and some idea that you had 3 months ago that you thought was a bad idea is suddenly a good idea because of the stuff that's already in your game that you hadn't planned for, right? And this is one of the things that agile software development is based on. It is that you can't like plan the entire thing out at the start and then build exactly that thing. You have to kind of iteratively test it and then see how it's going. And I think that's even more important as an indie developer, because the quality of what you make in terms of like what it feels like to play, what it looks like, all of that stuff is going to be dependent on the skills that you actually have, right? So for example, when I'm making a game, there's certain types of art or animation and stuff that I can do better than others, and I'll try all of them, but at some point I have to like objectively analyze it all and go, well, that stuff's not very good, right? So we change course and we emphasize the thing that is very good. The classic example, I think, of that is in AAA games is the Skyrim horses thing, right? So at Bethesda, they are painfully aware that they cannot make the horses in the Elder Scrolls games feel good to ride. And part of the reason is because of the engine they use. Because you've got such a big open world and like the way it loads things in isn't very fast. So if they make the horses fast enough so it feels good like it does in a Zelda game or an Assassin's Creed game, the horses actually move too fast through the world for the game engine, right? So they've never actually been able to technically implement horses that feel good. So they leave the horses in because they know that people expect to collect horses in a fantasy RPG, but they deliberately kind of deprioritize them in terms of how much they're tied into other parts of the game. They don't make like GTA style vehicular quests where you have to ride a horse or you have to go and do a horse race and stuff like that. And that's kind of an example of what I'm talking about. You end up with certain types of debt, and it's like, okay, you've got an idea that would be good in theory, like, yeah, totally a fantasy action game should have horses, but then the surrounding context of what you've already built kind of makes it a bad idea. So you either need to avoid the idea entirely or just not make it too central to what you're doing, right? I think this is like a really helpful thing for people to think about when it's those big questions of what should I make, or the little questions of what should I do next. Is just what is your criteria for deciding if something is a good idea or a bad idea? And people are always asking other people those kinds of questions. Which of these things should I do? What's a good idea and what's a bad idea? And really the quality of being like senior or being like a master at something is not actually knowing the answers. It's being okay with not knowing the answers and being okay with the fact that you have to just constantly make all of those judgments. Like, if you go and work at a company and you talk to someone who's like a senior software developer or a senior artist or a senior game designer, the thing that makes them senior isn't that they've learnt everything and they know it all off by heart and they always know the right answer to a question. The thing that makes them senior is that they are comfortable with doubt and they approach it as just being a part of the process, and they understand that it's their job, and the part of their job that makes them senior is just making those judgments or attempting to de-risk those judgments by like sitting down and thinking about it, right? Rather than there being an always right answer to a certain type of question. Anyway, we've got we're getting way too far into sort of philosophical self-help stuff kind of right now. Let's just kill some little guys on a map. This is called, what was it called? King's Downfall. Like I said, the dev disclosed that the capsule art was AI. To me, the capsule art doesn't actually have the calling cards of AI. Some of the in-game art does. It looks kind of a little bit over-polished and stuff, but we'll just kind of see how we get on with it. This does have quite consistent graphic design, and let's kind of see if it feels good to play. Seeds of Rebellion. The king hunts those who defy him. Protect your people and begin to gather strength for your uprising. Objective: liberate a small village and rally its people to your cause. Medium. We've got some rewards. Okay, new game. I once faithfully served the king, but over time his rule decayed into greed and cruelty. I could not stand idle as his tyranny spread, so I gathered the local few who still believed in justice. Outnumbered, hunted, and condemned as traitors, we rise in defiance. Overthrowing the king is our only hope of restoring peace and prosperity to the realm. Okay. Yeah, Robin, sounds like burnout, man. It takes a while to feel better from those kinds of things, and often it's just you got to focus on the bottom of the pyramid of needs, which kind of sucks because a lot of us are kind of creative or techie people are very motivated by the top of that pyramid, the self-actualization, the working on the magnum opus. But if you feel unhealthy and physically like rubbish all the time, you can't do that. But yeah, I know that feeling. Take all of Forgotten and Fiendish's dietary advice. It all sounds like quite sound dietary advice. Welcome. This is our new settlement. To survive, we'll need to construct additional buildings and recruit more units. Before we begin, please familiarize yourself with the camera controls. Hold the right mouse button to move the camera and use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. Right. This is all very crisp and clean. It feels like we've got quite a strange mix of art styles. All of these icons feel a little bit like RimWorld cartoony. These guys are hella bouncy. And then these kind of feel a bit kids' picture book. But the overall effect of everything is decent. The text is easy to read. We've got quite kind of just consistent graphic design across this whole thing. And I think the reason why I picked on the last game so much is that in a strategy game, you, as a player, you're not interacting directly with the game world. A lot of what you're interacting with is the user interface. And I think if you're developing any kind of game where the interactions with the interface and the menus is the main thing the player does, then you really should focus on making those things sleek, beautiful, whatever, because that is the thing that the player cares about. Right? And if I opened this up and, you know, these art assets all looked a little bit less polished and stuff, as long as this part of the game looked to this standard, I would be okay with it, because that's the part of the thing that we're interacting with as a player. So, you know, yeah, the kind of the identical trees feel strange. I mean, it's like there's a grid there that we can't see, but I think having the actual visible grid would make it look quite ugly. Okay, we've familiarized ourselves with the camera controls. We don't have any gold at the moment. Our buildings produce resources at the start of each day, but we need to survive the night first. Okay, goal, end the day. End the day. We don't have any gold at the moment. Our buildings... Yeah, okay, we've done that. We have enough resources to expand our settlement. However, we'll need more space. You can double-click a tree to cut it down. That's a nice interaction. What was I... Was I spending some sort of resource to chop the trees down? Can I just chop them all down in one day? We're done now. Well done. We're ready to construct new buildings. We're running low on food, so we should address this issue first. New buildings must be placed next to existing ones. So click on food. That is a cool menu design as well. So what they've done is I look at my resources, I see what I'm running low on, and rather than have a... This is like a kind of menu structure thing, but rather than have a menu that is like resources and I click into it and I have to find the food ones, all of the stuff that produces food is just under a food menu. Do I need to clear around that for that to make enough food? Produces 10 adjacent food for each adjacent farm. So I can build farms next to farms, and then the farms do more farming. That's how that works. Excellent, our food production is sufficient for now. Enemy attacks will grow stronger over time. We should prepare by recruiting a few more units. Okay, so we're going to build up a wall of units over here. And then there's going to be a kind of Avianos style auto battle when that incoming attack comes in. End day. That feels pretty good. I like that. Recruit more militia units. And our food income is 80. I know that when I'm playing through tutorials on this stream, I often don't do exactly what the tutorial is telling me at that time. And that's partly just because that's my natural inclination. But I also think you either need a tutorial that supports that and lets the player mess about and doesn't get broken by that, or you have to totally on rails the tutorial so that the player has to do exactly what you're telling them at any given moment. And it's kind of like it's one extreme or the other. You can't just do a middle ground, because otherwise you end up with the situation we saw in the last game where I'm clicking around doing other stuff and there's just stuff there floating from the tutorial that's broken from before, you know? Great job. Our new units will keep us safe for a while. To continue expanding, we need more villagers. Villagers consume food each day, so we may need to increase our food production as well. Right, we've got may need to increase, so we're starting to take the guide rails off and say, right, build a hut so we can get more villagers. Oh, by the way, you might need to do more of that thing you've already done. Right, so we're kind of reinforcing what building the farms are for, without like directly telling you that you need to build another farm. Our settlement is growing steadily. We can start focusing on more advanced resource production. To produce wood, we need a woodcutter's hut. Again, we just go to the wood menu. It's in there. For maximum efficiency, it should be surrounded by as many trees as possible. Okay. Build a woodcutter's hut. I can't build it right now because I don't have enough gold, so we're going to have to end the day and build it tomorrow. Again, tutorial supports me doing that. I didn't get stuck because it expected me to have a certain amount of gold. That's neat. Right, we're going to put that there. Oh, it only lets you build stuff next to your existing things, or diagonally out from them, I guess is the placement rule, so I can't build there. Okay. We've got some wood income. Excellent. Wood will allow us to construct more advanced buildings. Our castle generates a good amount of gold each day, but we'll need a lot more to keep up with the king's army. We can't produce gold directly. Instead, we must build a marketplace and sell resources produced at other buildings. Okay. Build a marketplace next to a farm. I will. I'll put it there. Farmer's market. We got next. Good work. We're earning more gold now. However, buildings affected by a marketplace no longer produce their original resource, so we may want to build an additional farm to compensate for the decreased food production. Oh, okay. That's how it is it? Right, so there's almost like a kind of mini Factorio thing here. It's like I need to if a farm on its own is like a resource input into your little economy, a farm attached to a market is like getting rid of that resource. It's a resource sink. Okay, let's end the day. Marketplaces work with all kinds of buildings, not just farms. Using them efficiently is vital for our survival. It's time to expand our army again. Militia are effective against small attacks, but will need stronger units eventually. Okay, we can build a barracks. That means we can start to build knights using wood and gold. Barracks. Anything else I can build? I'm just going to build as much everything that I can each turn, I guess, so that we've got the best income next turn. Trying to just do what my gut feeling is rather than the tutorial is telling me, because that will help expose any kind of problems the game might have in terms of the, you know, the problem with kind of strategy and turn-based games is, well, I mean, the problem with any kind of strategy-based game is if the developer always plays it in a particular way when they're playtesting it themselves, and they aren't aware of like another way that someone might try to play it. You're always going to get those sickos that just try and break your game, and you need, if you get some of those early on, if you find a playtester early on that is like a sicko that will try and min-max your game, then that's like a really good thing to get early on. But there's a lot of luck involved in that kind of thing. Let's get some more villagers. We're turning food into villagers. Don't think too hard about it. We make some knights. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure how much depth is in this game, but everything we've seen so far is pretty decent. I'm not... I would kind of... It makes me want to be able to jump straight into like a late game version of the game where everything's unlocked, so I can see if there's enough there for this to feel like it really has any teeth as a strategy game. I like everything I've seen so far, but I've moved on, you know, like those are my kind of... That's the sort of evolution of my concerns as I engage with this game. Is I start off being like, okay, let's just see if this has decent UX and feels nice to interact with. And then it's like, okay, this is quite a pleasant thing to do. Everything works the way you'd expect. Now we can kind of see these menus only have like two or three things in them. So what's like the full depth of this game? And I don't know if the demo is going to show me that. And that might be bad. I don't know. I think someone asked about the gold standard of tutorials. I don't know. Tutorials are just a necessary evil. You just have to work out what works for the game you're making at the time. You know, once you've you road test, then you stress test. You kind of test it with a bunch of people, see what they have the most trouble with learning, then you design a tutorial around that, right? It's the same as if you're a teacher, you design your classes around who's coming in and what things they seem to struggle the most to understand. It's the same sort of principle. You're designing a learning experience. But in terms of demo structure, I think one of the best ones I've played in the last year was what was it called? Netcrawl. It's like a roguelike where you're kind of hacking stuff, and you're on a hexagon grid and you use your cards to do stuff on the grid. And that had, in the demo, they had a tutorial run, and then they had what the developer had called a deep run, which was just like a snapshot of what much further into the game would look like. So instead of making a demo that's just like the first hour or the first 2 hours of the game, they'd made a demo that was the tutorial, and then like a chunk of content from way deeper into the game. And that's much better for allowing the player to do what I was just saying I wanted to do with this, which is to see what the depth of the game is like. So we'll kind of poke around in a minute and see if we can get there. I like this. You can let's build another barracks, I guess, so we can have more knights. You can send out raids as well, so you're building your guys up to defend your base, but then you can eventually send them out to do raids. Can I turn this woodcutter into a merchant? Is that a thing I can do? I'm not sure. Let's build some more woodcutters. Don't have enough money for that, so we'll do it to the next day. Get some more knights. They're starting to They're getting a bigger force now. I'm gonna have to spend more of my money on replacing my lost guys. Right, recruit 10 knights. Launch an attack and liberate a small village. Okay, so this is where our kind of Robin Hood fighting against the king thing comes. Where's the small village? Tax collector village. I poke you with my pokey stick. Cool. Now we've got a cottage, a hunting lodge, produces food for each adjacent tree. Stone mine produces stone for each adjacent mountain. Archery range lets you hire archers. Okay, cool. And you've got these perks that you can choose to set some sort of like power up for yourself. So we're gonna have. We'll start with an extra knight. See how we get on. Okay, so we need food, but we can generate food from trees now because we've got a hunting lounge. So we're going to do that this time. Maybe we'll clear an area for farming, but for now we're going to do things that way. We've also got stone mine. Maybe we'll do a farm that way. They do have a bit of a gummy bear vibe. I want to keep as many trees as possible around these two buildings, so I don't want to chop down too much over there. Keep upgrading our defense force. Always make sure your army is stronger than the Inca. I was intending to do that. That was my goal. Oh, a little village over there. Right, we can't hire knights yet. We need to build a barracks. Then we need gold to do that. So what we need to do next really is do a market here. Maybe we can do a wood market. I haven't tried that. The sound is... I can turn it up a little bit. It is relatively quiet compared to the last game, so I couldn't turn it up in the streaming software. Right. Let's just try and develop a big old food stockpile over here, and then maybe we'll make a market to... We need more housing as well. Okay, they're gonna start beating us up soon. So it seems like in kind of true auto battler fashion, I don't actually lose units that I lose. They kind of come back. Okay, cool. Yeah, it does have a Heroes of Might and Magic kind of vibe, doesn't it? It's okay, let's do... Can we do a marketplace here? So let's see how our income changes now. So we've got 440 food coming in and 1,000 gold. Okay, yeah, that's fine. That works for me. And then maybe we'll put another... Huh. It's very puzzly. The placement stuff is really, really puzzly. That's a good thing. Like trying to get the most efficient placement of stuff. We just need to focus on building the army up now. So far it is... It's convincing me of... One of the... You know, the thing I always say about demos is you need to work out what skepticism someone will bring to your game. And then your design needs to answer that skepticism. One of the pieces of skepticism I always have about these kind of games is it going to feel like I could basically just do the same thing every time? And, you know, my choices don't really affect the outcome. So far, it feels like if I replayed this level, I could try it a totally different way and it would feel different. And that's like a really important thing for any of these kinds of games, I think. Right, we get some knights. Maybe we should build a new barracks soon, but we need more villagers to do that. We need more huts. Now we can build some more knights, but we need more income because they cost 300 each. Do. How do we get our bowmen? Oh, if we start doing stone, I need to build out here really, so I can put a stone quarry there. Right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna just try and make as much money as possible. Want to build a stone quarry, but I don't want to put one that's just next to one mountain because it's not going to be as efficient as if I build out a little bit further and put it between the two mountains. So we go that. Very much on the cusp of getting wiped out on one of these battles. I really like the tension that this structure provides because I haven't lost one yet, but my presumption is that as soon as our force gets wiped out, we've lost, right? Which means there's this really nice little kind of tense gate that we have to pass through each day to keep going. What can we... Right. We need the archery range, but we're not there yet. There we go. Right. Here we go. Now we're really cooking with stone. Now we're really cooking with whatever they're hunting. Now we can build cottages with stone, which take up less space to house more villagers. And the archery range needs 3 villagers for 100 gold. We've got loads of wood. Okay, so maybe we should build another stone mine if we can. Maybe if I can get out here, up here, I don't know. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh. That's a great, that's a great structure. I really, really like that. Just, you're going to get attacked every day. You're going to get attacked every day. You need to spend your resources over here in order to get stronger, but you also need to spend your resources over here, or you're just going to flat out, you know, lose the game. It's a really nice kind of trade-off of things to balance. It's just really, really compelling. It's you know, it makes me want to play again immediately afterwards as well, which is generally a good sign. So, trying to take forward lessons learned in the last game, I need to build out in order to build the quarries in between the mountains, right? The most efficient place to build a quarry is here and here. So I want to kind of create a route to each of those. So we'll keep all our kind of woodland stuff over here, and then we'll build our town, I guess, so that it goes over that way. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. We'll start off with the stuff that the game wants us to build, which is like food, income, we want to stack these next to each other because that's how they get the most benefit. So I guess what we're trying to do is build wherever we can, but leave some spaces that have trees all around them, because otherwise we don't get the bonus for putting things with trees around them, which we need for either the hunting lodge or the forester, the woodcutter. If we don't have enough trees circling the same space, then those units become inefficient. There's some really nice kind of, you know, it's already answering that question of, is there enough stuff for this to feel deep? And even with like a relatively small set of things to kind of unlock and use, it does kind of feel like there's quite a lot here. And I think sometimes when I talk about this stuff, people would think I'm talking about like value from a player perspective. Like, oh, does this game have enough stuff in to be value for money for a player? And it's not even that. It's just like certain games need enough content in order for them to even function within their genre space, you know? Always make sure your army is stronger. That, yeah, I know. I learned that the hard way. Right. I can't build anything else this turn, so we'll just let them come again. Right, yeah, that kind of big top level trade-off of like, do you spend your resources on this category of things or this category of things, is just something that all kind of strategy and management games have to have in order to work, I think. And you want that to be reasonably kind of understandable and what the players would expect, again, like from the fantasy. And coming back to that idea of like, what's the fantasy? If your fantasy is Neanderthals surviving, then the kind of trade-off should be about food and, you know, threats from the wildlife and stuff. This has a nice framing story, which is you are kind of a Robin Hood type character, building your little town, and the king keeps sending units because there's an evil king. And it just, that helps explain the structure of the game, it makes sense that you're kind of building in this little corner and you keep getting attacked constantly. It's just everything here is kind of fitting together like clockwork, I guess. We can launch attacks. I don't think I want to do that though. I don't think I feel strong enough to be going and launching any attacks. Not today, Satan. Right, I don't have any wood production. Let's put one of those there and then one next to it, and then we'll have a good solid little area. Right, their army is getting big now though. There's a chance I might just get killed this turn. Uh-oh. Right, we might luck out. I don't think we will though. Let's see. So, what happened there? And I think this is evidence that this game is already quite well balanced, is something that often happens to me in strategy games. I try one thing, it goes wrong. I try something that is very different and I kind of overcorrect, and then it goes even more wrong. That to me feels like what the process of learning one of these is like. Okay, let's try again. Right, they only have one incoming, so I don't need to buy units straight away. I need to build economy straight away. First, build a woodcutter there, where it's going to be most useful. I still need to kind of follow that thing of trying to build the path out so that I can, you know, get to where I need to on the map to have the most efficient quarries. I'm convinced that's worth doing. Maybe you shouldn't be, but I am. I shouldn't have got rid of that one, but I will. I guess you can always demolish stuff later if you've used it for, you know, if you've got what you need out of it. Right, we need a barracks to be able to build more dudes. Yeah, there is a tutorial on this. It's very quick. There's not much you need to learn in order to get straight into the game. And you know, what I was concerned with is not being able to see the full depth of the game in a demo, but it's the change between the very first level and the second one feels quite steep in a way that I like. Because, you know, your demo needs to show the sickos that if the game is going to be one that they like, you know, I think. Right. Build my army up a little bit because they've got 5 guys incoming. I've got 5 and a knight now. That's slightly better. Cutting it a bit fine though. The auto battling is just random enough to make it feel a little bit gambly and like you don't know the outcome, even if you've got, you know, something. Even if you should win. There's a point there that has 2 around it as well, but I have to build out to it. Stone mine there. Right, now we can build better housing. We can start to train archers, but they're going to kill me this turn because I did the same thing. I focused too much on the economy and I didn't focus on building the army up first. I mean, there's still a small chance we could luck out, but we're not going to. Very sticky. Every time I lose, I want to play it again immediately. Okay. Right. One learning that I have now that I should try and carry forward is remembering that you can build diagonally and you can kind of cross the map quicker by building diagonally. But decent food income. So what I could do, cross the map diagonally by building farms and then join them up later, because the farms get increased food production by having other farms next to them, right? So that's one of the placement rules. But I can kind of build out in a direction that's not initially the most efficient thing, and then later get rid of the trees in the gaps and fill them out. Yeah, Heroes of Might and Magic, the kind of auto-battler thing feels a bit like Avianos to me as well. There's just a lot to like here. I really like what I'm seeing. I find it... The overall aesthetic feels quite coherent. It just makes you want to have another go every time you fail as well, which is important for obvious reasons. Hunting lodge there. Right, so I think the first few times when I failed, what I was mainly experiencing was I was focusing too early on trying to over-optimize everything that I placed. Right, so I wouldn't place something down unless it had all of the tiles around it and stuff. And I think actually what you need to do is spread out, put things in the best place, in, you know, across the whole board, and then you can start felling more of the trees and filling out the gaps with stuff. But you don't need to focus too much on the kind of efficiency rules. So for anyone who's just joined, these hunting lodges produce more food for every adjacent tree. The wood cutter produces more wood for every adjacent tree. So there's all of these like adjacency rules that you're trying to adhere to. But if you try and adhere to them too strictly, then you just fall behind and die, which is kind of what I think what really got me in the last few tries. And I'm kind of, you know, I'm thinking out loud a lot because I think that is, I'm not just doing that to explain the game. That is like how you review if a strategy game is working. You know, when someone plays it, are they actually thinking? Because that is what strategy games are supposed to do. They're supposed to give you something to think about. I know that probably sounds really obvious, but the amount of times I see one where it just seems to be kind of simulating a little world rather than giving you a set of things to think about. The thinking is the game mechanic. Right, we've got 7 and 1 coming in. We've got 8 and 1. Next turn, all of my resources need to go on building up defenses now. Oh, so close. Right. Okay. We've got 9 and 1. They're going to start bringing in archers now. We need to build a barracks. I don't think I'm going to have... I'm not going to have enough stuff. Not going to have enough gold, am I? there's a very small chance that I'll win this. Maybe I can launch an attack for resources. Maybe that's a thing. Let's just try it. Let's go and do an attack. Maybe that gives us the bonus before that we defend, and that means that we can use the bonus from doing the attack to build up our defenses. So we lost these two guys, so we don't have them now. But I now have a few more gold. Oh, we're still kind of evenly matched. I guess we'll just have to see what happens. We've got 3 knights, they've got 2 knights, but they've got archers. The archers are super glass cannony. If you tap them, they die, but you have to yeah. Okay. What are we low on at the moment? Right, we're low on money. We're not producing a lot of money. So what we're going to do, we'll make sure we've got more knights than them, because that seems to be the main thing in a clinch. Right, this is now taking these farms, and instead of producing food, those farms are now producing money, which we need in order to get more troops. So let's just make sure we've got enough money income, because the gold is crucial to building more troops. I'm very tempted to just do another attack, but yeah, maybe it's not a good idea yet. Let's see if we survive this one. Oh, so close, so close, so close. Come on, guys, you can do it. Come on. Very visually clear what's happening in the auto battle as well, which I think is important. You can select a building to see detailed information about its effects. If you you can upgrade a hut to a cottage. Ah, so we don't always have to build stuff. We can upgrade one thing into another thing. That's cool. Right. I still don't have enough for the archery range, so I need to start upgrading my living spaces. Now we can build an archery range. And then what do we need? We need more. There we go. That's more like it. Don't have enough gold right now. Oh, they're going to beat me this time, I think. 952, 962. We're going to go and attack somewhere else. Because if we can just get a little bit more gold from this, then we might end up with more to defend than they've got to attack. Did we lose anyone? We lost 1 knight. Okay. We've got 962 coming in. We've got 1053. Okay, we've got maybe still a chance of surviving. The balancing between building your economy and building your defense is really tight, and it's good. It's what a game like this needs. Oh my goodness. That one guy. It's Godot. I don't know if it's Godot. I don't know what game engine it's made in. It's not. I don't usually pay attention to that. Okay, cool. Whew. Right. We need more money income. There we go. Okay, our food is in the negative, but we can last a few days like that, so maybe it's okay. We've got so many knights now, though. They're overwhelming us with knights. I think this one might be the one where we die. Yep. Definitely going to die this time. I mean, that's worth highlighting as a part of the fun in that auto battler. You're not doing anything, you're observing it, but you're still sort of practicing or exercising the skill of trying to judge when it's going to go either way, right? And you see that as like that's like a mini game within chess, Magic the Gathering, all of any kind of dueling based turn-based game often has that kind of mini game of judgment in it. Like, when do you concede? So it's interesting that you can have something where the player's not doing anything, and the kind of judgment you're making on observing it and trying to work out which way it's going to go does feel a lot more active than you would expect from a game where there's nothing, or a moment in a game where there's nothing to actually do. I really like that. I want to keep playing it, but we've got one more game to look at before the end of the stream. So that was King's Downfall. I will be adding the links. Well, the links should already be on the stream description, actually, but I will add them to the timestamps in the VOD. Let's just... Right, so the last one is a bit of a strange experimental one. It's called Map Painter, and it's like an ASCII Civ type game. So let's just see what it says here on the itch. A minimalist strategy prototype, expand and conquer to paint the map blue. Tutorial in game. A bit of trying to get back to the basics. The idea was to hit the marks of a classic strategy game in as minimal a way that still creates interesting decisions. It runs as a terminal program for Windows and Linux. Includes a territory control mechanic that's based on landscape movement costs and an inefficient GOAP AI implementation. In hindsight, I think GOAP is probably not really the right approach for strategy game AI. Makes more sense for moving agents, I think. Plans barely vary, and it could have easily just been a decision tree. So I don't know loads about how you program AI in strategy games, but I remember a while ago listening to what's his name, Designer Notes, the guy that Jamie Cheng. So Jamie Cheng is the guy who is in charge of Clay Interactive, who made Don't Starve and Mark of the Ninja and Invisible Ink and probably other things since then, Griftlands. And Jamie Cheng started out, I think, as an AI programmer in, I think it was Total War. And if you listen to his Designer Notes episode, he talks about that, and he talks about how when they were designing AIs for enemies in strategy games, they would start off trying to actually make an intelligent, responsive AI that was kind of plotting and then doing stuff based on what the player did. And they ended up just... they ended up realizing that it was much better to just come up with a couple of strategies that a human player would do, and then give the computer a build order based on that, and have it be reasonably dumb, but have it do a set of things that usually would be clever. You know, if you have like a a strategy that you're sitting down to play StarCraft, and at the beginning you go, right, this is my strategy, I'm going to build these buildings and these units, and they just kind of made it relatively dumb and just did that thing. And I think that was an interesting example of like a big strategy title where the developers, as they were going along, were learning the best approach for implementing the AI, and it ended up just being like, yeah, don't actually make it clever, just make it kind of copy what a player would do most of the time. And because it's strategy and not tactics, it's not really about being responsive, it's just about having a strategy and then following through with it, right? It's a little bit like the there's a trick where you play a bunch of games of chess against a bunch of different let me find it. I'll put the link in the video description, and you can go and find it. They did it on Darren Brown years and years ago. So Darren Brown is like a TV illusionist, and he does this trick, which isn't actually his invention. It's him copying someone else. But he plays these 9 very high profile chess players, and he beats like 5 of them. And the way that he actually does it is by just playing them in a circle against each other and remembering all of their moves. And so he's not actually playing the game at all. He's just memorizing what someone else would do in that situation and playing that game. And it creates the illusion that he's really good at chess because he beats like 5 out of 9 of these like really good chess players. But he's actually just kind of like memorized what the other player did and is doing it. And I think like my impression is that doing AI in strategy games is a little bit like that. You just kind of have a playbook of what a good player would do, and you just kind of give them an order of operations based on that. And it's not like super reactive. It's just they have a plan at the start, and that plan is a reasonably valid one. Okay. Yeah, I'll put that on. Like, if I don't think Darren Brown ever got like internationally famous. He's an interesting guy. Some of what he does uses stooges and is obviously fake, but he's a kind of hypnotist and stuff. And he did some very interesting kind of pranks and stuff on his show. I think he's quite a charming and amusing person. Okay, program start. What landscape would you like for the realm? Temperate valleys, savanna, or mountains? Well, let's do one. Okay, press enter to continue. Select a landing location for your first citadel. Move the cursor with the arrow keys, then press C to build the citadel. Ooh, interesting. So we've got like a trad roguelike style ASCII map. And I can look around. I'm looking where I'm gonna, but there's a quite an intense fog of war, so I can kind of scroll around, decide where to place my citadel. But we're going to be trying to paint the whole map blue. I guess I'll just go there. See? You now have a citadel to spread your control and territory. Every year, citadels will requisition manpower and yields in areas under your control. Press enter to continue. Select a location to build your first outpost. Move the cursor with the arrow keys, then press O to build your outpost. Okay, so it's kind of doing some sort of like flood. We're in year 7 apparently. It's done some sort of like flood fill algorithm to be like, this is your territory now. I guess the little things moving around are supposed to be like something. Oh, I don't know what they are, but like something mobile within our kingdom, like kind of vehicles or settlers or something. I'm going to build my outpost. I guess the edge of the map is here, so there's no point building an outpost up there. So we're going to build our outpost over here. You got Darren Browned by your own bad memory. That's amazing. You now have an outpost to requisition manpower, boost control and explore beyond your borders. Okay. Select a location to build your first farm. Move the cursor with the arrow keys, then press F to build your farm. I mean, one thing I'm already pleasantly surprised with is this is just giving me one decision at a time, and that might be a bad thing under certain situations, but one of the, I'm going to just make this larger because you don't need that whole window because the game is only in that bit. There we go. Because when I see sort of ASCII roguelike looking stuff, I'm always a bit worried that it's going to be super complex. And I think maybe there is something complex here, but it's the design of like how we interact with it seems to be very kind of streamlined in terms of it's just do this, now do this, now do this. And that's not going to be very interesting if we have to do it for a very long period of time, but I think it's nice for onboarding. You now have a farm to spread fields on grassland and pastures through your forests. Increasing yearly yields in areas under your control. Press enter to continue. Okay. Continue building up outposts and farms until you have enough yields and manpower to spread your control further with new citadels. Okay, so we build... Was I supposed to not build my outpost on the blue? Was I supposed to build like an outpost over here or something? Can I do that? No, you have to... Okay, you have to build it on land you control. So we can build outposts... We can build citadels, we can build farms. And I guess the M and Y is how many months and years something is? I don't know. What is M and Y? It feels like a weird order because years is more significant than months. Oh no, that's manpower. That's yields and manpower. So I would probably use a symbol for these, just because it would make everything a lot quicker to read. Expand with citadels to get yields, open brackets, dollar, and manpower, open brackets. I don't know what symbols you have available in this kind of setup. But I would use symbols with a color for those, and then here it's going to be a lot easier to understand. Right. So I'm just sitting and waiting for it. I guess I could probably build a farm. Will it let me build another farm? Unknown command G. Okay. Can I build another outpost? I can. There's a tiny little island there. There's a grassland in the middle of all of that lake. The blue Wibblies is a lake. I'm just going to build an outpost there. The island of the weirdos that aren't connected to the rest of the kingdom. Yeah, the T. You're right. The T's are forests, and the things are grass. If I hover over them, it kind of changes what the tile type is there. So I think there's a few things here you could do to just make the UX of this more. What I'm trying to do is like not deviate from what the game is and be like, here's how you make a better version of this. So for example, I think when I highlight on, I think it would be good to have the tile type here in the color of the thing that you're hovered on as well. You don't want too much color, but there's already a color here. So if I'm on here and it says forest, this forest should be in that green. And if I go here where it's desert, that desert should be in that yellow ochre. And that grass should be in that grassy color. I like this. I feel like you could also get away with doing a kind of Caves of Qud and having like music that is a little bit too high definition for the rest of the game, but make some kind of nice ambient music to go with this. And I think people are quite accepting of that kind of thing. You have the kind of 1-bit boop 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 sounds, but then maybe underneath that you have some sort of like very minimal synth music with some kind of nature sounds, so that you do get that underlying I'm gonna do it. He gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Epidemic Sound has logged me out. Who do you think you are? Why do I pay my taxes to you, music library? Like fantasy ambient. Just looking for the whatever has the most reserved looking waveform. Can I loop it? Yeah. Just needs a little bit of ambient synth. Have we actually grown? Can I build a new citadel? I can. Oh, it's spreading. That's very satisfying. Yeah. So we're doing like a game of life population sim type here, but with a few things that the player can do to actually affect things. We've got kind of different types of tiles. You can't see the whole map because there's a fog of war. We've got the different types of tiles that are the different kind of colored characters, and I sort of understand what the different buildings do now. So a citadel, this is the cost, right? The action cost of placing a new citadel is 100 manpower and 200 yields, right? I think what I would do here is, when we can't afford one of these, make the number grey. So if I didn't have enough manpower, this would say grey 100, and then the manpower should be a symbol, like a face or something. And then if I have enough, it's white. If I don't have enough, it's grey, and then a symbol with a color for the resources. But basically, the citadel is the only thing that expands your actual territory and paints more of the map blue. The outpost is how you produce more manpower. So it's just like a settlement. And the farm is how you produce more yields. So you've got two different resources. Farm, spread, field, and pasture. So that's a farm, and I guess these fields around the farm, these grass things, are the thing that the farm has spread. There doesn't seem to be any kind of like best placement of why you would put an outpost in a particular place, but the farms, I guess they're better if you put them together because you want them to be near other fields. And then whenever you've got enough for a citadel, you just kind of, you put it on the edge of your kingdom, and then it grows. I'm pleasantly surprised by this. I was expecting, when I saw this presentation, I was expecting something really kind of overly complex and not really focused on the kind of user experience. Yeah, so the blue is our kingdom. There is water, but the water is these tiles that have the little wiggly. That's a pasture, the percentage sign. Kind of hard to take over this top bit of the map because there's too much water. I'll do another citadel here and down in the bottom left, I guess. Upgrade available for reaching 5 citadels. Enter the number for your new building type. Ooh, this is nice. Do we want to mark it? Which boosts the yields of surrounding fields and pastures, or an invasion. A strong attack on borders, but only lasts 1 year. Nice, big, chunky decisions. Right, we don't need to do an invasion because there's no red player as far as I can tell. Okay, I'm gonna do escape, and then I'm gonna play the non-tutorial one now, because I got the impression the tutorial doesn't have an opponent in, so we're gonna jump into the savannah level now. This is neat. Okay, I'm going to put my first citadel. Put it there. I think that, I mean, from the itch page, it looked like you're supposed to play against a red player, and I think maybe the tutorial doesn't have them, so. Farm. Farm. So the farms initially don't actually make that much yield because they have to spread their fields first. So you see the farms where there's a bright green F, and then you can see the grass growing around them. This hash key with the yellow color. Those grow out from where you put the farms, and then that is what leads you to getting yields, which is like your food income. So you have to kind of wait for the simulation to run a little bit until you've got more fields. Fields equals yields. And then I'm not sure if the yields are captured by having the farm next to them, or if they're captured by being within your domain. I would suspect it's the last thing. Hard to really say. Let's make... Farms cost 25 manpower and 5 yield, so let's make 2 more farms so that we grow quicker. I'm not sure what the animation is where the lighter blue is stepping out from the citadel and sort of exploring the realm. I like it, but I don't know if there's some sort of functionality to it. Right, we're gonna check this out for like maybe 15 minutes more. I feel like there's some meat to this. I'm quite enjoying engaging with it, and then I will wrap the stream up soon. I've got a sort of coming down with a bit of a cold, so I'm losing my voice a little bit at the moment. A big old video to edit as well. Thank you. I don't know if anyone's in the chat who was involved in sending me their videos about playtesting. I haven't been able to use everything that was sent to me just because I'm trying to make a coherent edit of, like, you know, 6 people talking and recurring rather than it jumping between like 12 or 20 different people. But yeah, I wanted to make a video about how to playtest, and then I kind of realized that playtesting methodologies are something that you develop specifically in relation to your own game and your own project, depending on where you're at with it and what you need to find out and stuff. So instead of doing a step-by-step how to playtest, I got other people from our community to kind of describe why they playtest the way they do, and then I'm sort of in the process of editing that together and joining it all up. So if you are a patron, there will be an early version of that coming on the Patreon, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days before it goes onto YouTube. As is always the case, that's like the perk for the lowest tier of our Patreon, is you get videos earlier and I cut the ads out of them and stuff like that. But yeah, thanks for everyone who's helped out with that. I think it's going to be a good one. It's just really nice to make a video that's not me sitting there just spouting off about stuff. Right, we don't have enough for a citadel yet. Our manpower is growing quite slowly, so I need to build some more outposts. Still not sure about whether the placement of the outposts really matters in this. Kind of hard to tell. We've got enough both resources for a citadel now. Right at the top here, I guess. That's got the best chance of growth because it's like one peninsula sticking out on its own. Yeah. I've got enough for another one. I'm gonna do it. Let's do one right at the top. It feels like a bit of a waste, but that way we've kind of just got a line down the middle of the map. Yeah, I don't know if there is an enemy on the map. I feel like we would have seen them by now. Bomb, 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 bomb. Outpost, 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 outpost. I feel like, have you ever seen the Star Trek movie where Data gets a humor chip? And he's like on the computer and he's going, life forms, you itty bitty life forms. Is it Generations? Not sure. And that's how I feel interacting with this game. We can see them. They're coming. They're coming. So when I get my 5th citadel, I get the chance to do the border attack upgrade. Can't build that on the water. Let's spread out over here. Over here. They're coming. Red's coming. Old Genghis over here in the corners. You have taken control of a mountain village. Choose. Raise it to the ground to collect 50 manpower and 100 yields. Let it develop into a market. Upgrade it to a citadel. I'll let it develop into a market, thank you. Then we're going to do an attack on borders, which I guess what we will do is like hit the red side and just start pushing their borders down. The problem is I can't see enough of them to see the kind of impact of that, but I'm going to do it anyway because the Blue Nation is very warlike. Oh, we're meeting up with them. There's a yellow bit. Is that where a war is happening? You have encountered another AI warlord. Another AI warlord. Are you calling me? Are you calling me an AI warlord? Video game. Your borders are now contested, shown in yellow. Conquer them with citadels and invasions. Okay. Okay, buddy. Right, we've got 2 citadels on the border. Oh my goodness, it's so fast. Citadel, citadel, citadel. This aggression will not stand. Oh my, it's suddenly got so much faster. Right, farms over on the eastern frontier, fill it with farms and outposts. The west, we just need to dump as many citadels down as we can, because that's what pushes the line, I think. It is a real treat to get sent something that is remarkably weird and unusual, but is actually good at the same time. Because I like it when people try and do something weird, but when you get excited because something is weird and unusual and then it turns out to just not be very interesting, that's always quite disappointing. And this is actually good. Yeah, look at that. Look at that border. Come on, push them back. We're going to build an entire wall of citadels. We are. Oh, we do still need to expand over this side. Okay, we can crush them out economically. If we build some citadels down the east, we'll capture more land for farming and outposts. We use that for our economy. We've already got 2/3 of the map. That's going to give us the resources we need to build the citadels and push through. We can build market. Market building. Do I press M to build a market? Let's develop into a market. Yeah, I can build my own markets. Okay. Right, citadels over this side because we need to capture the east side of the map. Put some back here so that if they do manage to push the line, we've got some guards, I guess. This is such a weird game. I'm just chucking down farms wherever I can. Citadels. Upgrade it to a citadel. What's going on there? Right, we're just watching the line and trying to work out where they seem to be gaining purchase and then making sure we build a citadel there, I guess. Video games. Right, we've got loads of farms, but we don't have loads of manpower, so we're going to build a bunch of outposts over in the middle, or wherever isn't on the frontier. Invasion is a building option. Oh yeah, not enough. Yeah, it is. Military upgrade. Rocket! Destroys surrounding buildings, only lasts 1 year. Okay, can I do a rocket here? Huh. I can build rockets on the border next to their stuff and then it blows it up. So I don't know what's going on anymore. Give up. Give up, you chumps. Have you seen... Look, I get it. You don't understand how vast my realm is because you've never been here. Because you've been stuck over in that corner of the world. But I control like 4/5 of the world. You need to just... Your time has been and gone. Cannot build on water. That's the reason why it's so hard to push the border at the bottom, is because we're fighting on on the water. So the route to victory is actually just pushing along the top and then coming back round, I think. Some markets down. I can't remember what markets do, but I just put some. Someone told me once they've got invisible hands or something. I think that would probably come in handy somewhere. Why would a market have an invisible hand? I don't understand. Oh, we've got factories. What do factories do? I don't know what these things do. A big wall of factories across the middle of the nation. Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, this whole stream has been like, I start off grumpy. The first game makes me grumpier. And then we have a nice emotional turnaround from the two good games. And hey, the first game had obviously had a lot of time put into it, but that's just not what makes something fun to play, unfortunately. I always want to be able to give people a pat on the back and say, look, your efforts are good, they're just not in the right place at the moment. But when we're trying to focus in on like identifying what's good or bad about something, that can kind of get lost in all of the kind of negative critical feedback. These guys are tenacious. Why have I not crushed them yet? I've got so much stuff. Maybe I need to invade them. Cannot build on land you don't... It's in the whole point of an invasion that you don't control it. I build invasions here. But yeah, I don't know who said it in the chat. Build outposts on the barren land to the east of the kingdom, yeah. I don't know if that does anything, because all the outpost does is like capture the land. I keep getting outposts and citadels confused in my head. That's me building rockets on their border and blowing up their stuff. And then I can quickly sneak in and put stuff of my own there afterwards. Little bit too close to things in the real world, I guess. Why are they so... Why is it so difficult? I've got so much more stuff than you. Man. They're so tenacious. Fill out all of this. I don't remember what the markets or the factories do. I can kind of work out what the rockets do. When I put the invasions down, they're like a little @ symbol, and I'm not sure... I can't really see what's happening with the invasions. You can destroy and replace your own buildings by rocketing them. Yeah, Seth, you're right. The fact that you can't just spam it is an indication that the game is actually challenging. I mean, there are moments when I'm just drawing kind of semi-random stuff and hoping it pans out. Can I do something over here? Just keep blowing up the border, trying to get them. Trying to poke a citadel in there whenever there's a spare bit. They seem to be making a comeback. I kind of hate it. I don't know how to get them. It's just not. Right, I really need my fingers hovering on CNR so I can rock it and then also put a citadel down as soon as possible afterwards. I think that's the strategy. It's definitely an interesting one to try and work out, like, what you do to... Ah, there we go. Oh. I keep building citadels so they just take them over immediately. Or, like, it becomes contested and then they get the citadel and then they can grow quicker. It feels like there's some weird moral here about wars and stuff. So the more heavily I defend, the border, the more resources I give them to take over in order to attack me with. It's kind of the whole, like, carrying a knife dramatically increases your risk of getting stabbed thing, you know? Only with ASCII. I can't get out of this situation. We're in a stalemate. Attacking properly needs invasion. Yeah, maybe. I just couldn't see what invasion was doing when I did it. The rockets, I can see what's happening because they kind of flash the area around them. If I do a rocket here, you'll see what the rocket... The rocket is... Not enough yields to build your rocket. Okay. Yeah, the rockets is very clear what's happening because you do that and then the area around flashes and it does a little explosion. But the invasion just drops a little... Just drops a little... @ symbol that doesn't seem to do anything. What's going on? Oh. I just keep pressing I on everything until invade, invade, invade. Oh, we nearly split them into 2 groups then. Orville, don't think too hard about it. You just have to swear allegiance to the Blue Nation. Yeah! A house divided against itself will not stand. I still don't really understand how the invasion units work or what they do, but I'm just like drawing them around the edge and hoping they do something, but I think it could be kind of clearer how they work. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can we rocket them? We can rocket them. I rocketed myself. There's a weird little skill mini game to like remembering where the keys are on the keyboard fast enough for this. It wouldn't be fun in any other context, but it's kind of amusing here. Right, we're gonna go back. We're gonna do a little bit of economic jiggery pokery over here. We're gonna stick some farms and stuff down. We're gonna stick some outposts down, just so that we've got faster income. Then we come back over here. Start invading again. Do some rockets on their citadels over here. Yeah. Give it up. Give it up. Give it up. Oh, they've managed to join up again. You can put invasions on the kind of contested bits that are in the dark yellow colour, the kind of gold colour. The Cerulean Empire will not be thwarted by these upstarts. Yeah, come on, split them. Split them. Apologies to anyone who's joined in the middle of this game. You probably have no idea what's going on. But it's a little bit too hectic and too engrossing to constantly explain what's going on anyway. Very, very good example of how you can get a lot out of a small set of decisions, and then the balance between what the player has control over versus the stuff that is much more indirect. Come on. Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it. It is Game of Life. Yep. Game of Life, the aggro version. It's just like blowing up so many citadels over there. I try not to think about what a citadel is or what the word represents as I press R to rocket them. Invasions! Come on! Come on! Figuring out what's happening is a game, yeah. The deduction game. kind of great. Yeah, I put some music on that I thought would kind of fit the vibe without being too obtrusive. I could definitely fall, if I had the game like this that I was working on, I could fall down a rabbit hole of making the kind of symbols on the screen generate the music. Really, really great talk. If you're interested in like music that can be generated in the game without even necessarily using things like Fmod or Wwise, there's some really cool talks by Disasterpeace where he's talking about making the music for Mini Metro. Very, very kind of fascinating rabbit hole to fall down. I could totally see this as a bit like generating its own music as you played it. That would be cool. Come on, look at that war. Look at that. So the kind of dark yellow is where the war is currently happening. You have painted the map blue and destroyed your enemies. Press any key to continue. A 1. That's what's happening. Yeah. Can you explain what's happening really quick? A 1. That's what happened. That was kind of like a minimalist 4X where the first 5 minutes of it are a lot less hectic. Basically, before you interact with the red on the map, it's no way near that hectic. You have a citadel that you place that does the kind of Game of Life flood fill with the blue and takes over a certain area of the map. You have the different symbols on the map are basically telling you what's there. So a C is a citadel, an O is an outpost, and F is a farm. The little wiggly lines are water. The 2 brown dots are desert, there's forest, there's grasslands. It's all kind of ASCII art that you would see in a roguelike, but it's using that to do a 4X. So you're capturing territory with citadels, you're using outposts and farms to increase your levels of like food and your population, and then you spend those resources to build more citadels to take over the map. And then later on you unlock other symbols you can place down, like the rocket and the invasion and stuff. The game... Now, maybe if I played the first map, quitted out of it, and then played the second harder map, maybe if we'd have spent longer in the tutorial, it would have explained how the invasions and the rockets and stuff worked a bit. So I can't really fault the game for not tutorializing them because I didn't play through the whole of the tutorial map. But that was surprisingly compelling for what it was. And I think when I see kind of... A lot of the time, when I see kind of like ASCII roguelikes, I'm sort of drawn to them, but then I often find the learning curve is too steep, and I just can't be bothered. That had like quite a small set of things you needed to learn how they worked and how to do them and stuff, and it ended up being quite compelling because of it. But yeah, not a spectator sport. I understand as well. Right, that's me for today. I am tuckered out. I need to go and do something that doesn't involve pressing C to put the letter C all over a map and hoping that does something. As always, if you want games on this stream, send them to the website. There is a form. There is a form for submitting games. There is a big old backlog of about 200 games. Every few weeks I go through it, I pick out some games, I try to arrange them in themes for these streams. They have to be games that haven't been commercially released yet. Someone got very upset with me about that rule recently because they were saying, yeah, you're a doctor, you should help people, you should help us with our games and when we've released... And I sort of explained to them that there is a process there for a reason. And one of them is that as soon as you make your channel about marketing people's games rather than kind of showcasing works in progress, then it becomes all about that because everyone will just kind of send stuff for that. So it's always been the kind of unique selling point of this stream that the games have to be unfinished, have to not be released yet. And partly that's so that we can give them feedback, but it also just keeps the emphasis on design and away from like just, hey, check out this game. You can get it for $5.99 now. But yeah, submit games to this stream. I pick them out from a list. There's no way I will ever play all of them because I can't, but I try to grab games that fit a common theme and put them together on a stream like we did today with kind of strategy, colony, buildy type games. Three very different games this time. I've added a couple more criteria on the form just to make it a little bit easier to sort together things that are similar, because before I was going through this massive spreadsheet and pressing Control F and then typing in cozy and then typing in dinosaur and then typing in racing and just seeing what came up. I've added some kind of genres on there and themes so that you can pick when you submit games. It has to be a demo or it can be a playtest. It just has to not be for sale yet. That's the distinction, right? If it's on the internet and you're charging money for it, then you've published the game commercially, and that is not what this Thursday stream is for. It's for work in progress stuff. And if you're already charging money for that game, it basically means that you already think that it's good enough, which means that you don't need it to be on a design review stream, which is what this is. So yeah, don't include as many keywords as possible. Accurately describe your game based on the categories that it fits into, and you know, that people would be drawn to in terms of what it actually is. You know, include the relevant keywords. Don't include the keywords that aren't relevant, like, I don't know, calling your game a tower defense because it has one tower in it or something. This game is a tower defense because you work at a tower and you are their sysadmin and you have to stop people hacking the tower. That's not how game genres work. What if you submitted for playtesting, then put it up like 6 months later? Well, then I delete it from the spreadsheet. Look, I can't get through all of them. The system is the best it can be for what it needs to be. And do you email back? No. Too time consuming. Too time consuming. I do try to message people and tell them when their game has been on the stream. I don't always remember every week, but I do try to. It is something I have a Performer email to do that with, but yeah, I don't always remember. Just because I'm a one-person operation and it's just very time-consuming, and my brain is broken as well. But yeah, I try to remember. But also, you know, part of the premise is that these are viewers' games. So I think if someone actually watches the channel, they will see when their game's been on a stream because the title will be in the name of the stream. You know, it's not now, but I go back to them and I add the timestamps and stuff later on. The real trick is just to make sure that your game has been played by some other human beings before you send it to me, right? Because you don't need like someone tearing a hole in your game in front of like 100 live viewers and, you know, 2,000 people that watch the stream afterwards on a VOD before anyone else has ever engaged with it, which I know does happen sometimes. It sometimes feels like I'm the first person that has ever playtested the game. That's like a waste of the opportunity, because if you think of like the first game we saw here, there were just so many little bugs and stuff, so many things that should have been ironed out before it got to this situation, and that meant that instead of being able to sit and talk about the game design and what it made me feel and what was good about it, I was just like picking holes in like very fundamental buggy things and like bad art and stuff like that. So yeah, you know, I'm quite happy to play 2 boxes with a blank background. What I'm not happy to play is when it's 2 boxes on a blank background and it's on Steam and it's like coming to Steam in the next 3 months, and I think, why you don't have a game? Why are you positioning this as a sales page when this isn't a game yet? I'm usually happy to play very early prototypes, but it depends. And you know, sometimes I will schedule a stream that is just early prototypes. We did some in December where I just picked all of the games that were browser-based itch games, and we did like 16 of them in a session and just went through them really quickly. it really just depends on what's in the queue, and if there's like a category of stuff, like a few people have just made a grey box prototype or something like that, then I might do all of those together. But yeah, it just really depends what's there. I just wouldn't overthink it too much beyond, like, has anyone played it? Do you think it's a good use of someone's time to play it? Which I think is, like, that's something I always consider, of like, when I'm preparing a game for someone else to playtest, I always think, okay, is there anything in this game that is glaringly obviously wrong to the point where it would be wasting someone's time for them to spend half an hour playing it? That's my like personal criteria for whether I want someone else to playtest that build. And if there's loads of stuff wrong with it where I know I'd have to explain it and go, oh, you have to imagine that this is that and da da da, then I just would try and get that right first, you know. And this is kind of coming back to that earlier point about getting the reps in, learning your tools and your tech so that you can do things quicker, because then you don't second guess all these things and go, oh, should I do this, should I do this? You just do it, right? But the thing that holds a lot of people back is they go, oh, I don't know, yeah, and it's because a thing that should take you 2 hours takes you a week, because you're kind of like rushing to get further ahead in your kind of career as a game developer than you actually are, and you just need to like get good at the tools so that you can do things quickly. And then when you have these kind of issues of like, oh, you know, is this thing ready for testing? It's like, well, you deep down, you know, it's just, if you're not very experienced at your tool, then you will go, well, okay, there's all these things wrong with it, but fixing them would take too long. And it's like, well, fixing them takes too long because you're just not very experienced at your tools yet. And I have that issue for certain things. There are certain things I can do in my game engine very well and very quickly, and other things that just really hurt my brain. Anything that's like super heavy lifting, like data stuff and UI stuff, I still struggle with, and I have to go and get other people to help me and stuff like that. But generally, I think just follow that principle of like, if you're, people want to help you, people want to playtest games. Like, there are lots of people who've never done that before, like friends and family, happy to get involved and do that kind of stuff. But you have to respect their time and just kind of like have a value in your head of what some half an hour of someone's time is worth, and not give them something that you already know that there are a million different things wrong with it, you know. Sometimes it can be helpful because you give someone something and you think A, B, and C are wrong with it, and actually they don't care about A and B. C really matters, and then they find D and E, right? So it can still be helpful to do, but I think the first game in this stream is a very good example of a game that's just like way too far into development. It's up on Steam, it's got a Steam page, and there's just fundamentally broken stuff with the core of the game. And it just shouldn't be at that stage yet where it's being shown to like hundreds or thousands of people and told, hey, come and check this out. Because if the dev had said, hey, come and check this out with just like 5 people that lived local to them, or like a private Discord server, it would be in a better state before it gets to that stage where they're showing it to like a much larger group of people. So, you know, just respect people's time. It's like, good game design is humanistic, it is player centric. We do stuff because we want someone else to have a good time, we care about their experience. If you kind of take on that attitude, then you can flow it through to everything. You know, how you do business and marketing and publishing and stuff, how you integrate playtesting into your development process. If you care about other people's experience, it's like something that benefits you in every area of what you do, right? It's just like it's fundamental to making games that people like, and like being trusted as well, which is one of the things that you have to do as anyone running a business. You build up trust. You kind of create a relationship with your audience where you say, this is what we're doing next. This is, you know, you played our demo, the next version, the next build is going to have this, that, and the other in it, and you build up trust over time. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, eventually leads to people's wish lists actually meaning something and converting into sales, because you've shown over time that you're trustworthy, that you do the things that you say, that you're centering what you do on the end user experience, and not just getting something out there as quickly as possible and just fingers crossed hope it will do well. So Yeah, I mean, nothing that I say about Steam, I'm not like an expert on Steam. I'm not an expert on publishing and stuff. I started this channel because I like indie games and I wanted to spend more of my time engaged with them. So I'm not here to be like, this is what you should do from a business perspective when you publish a game on Steam or whatever. When I talk about this stuff, I'm talking more from an ethical perspective of like, if you go into a marketplace and you offer up something that clearly hasn't had much care and attention put into it, and you're presenting that as almost like a foregone conclusion that you're going to take it all the way to market and you're going to sell it, I'm going to be more critical of that piece of media than if it's a little browser game in itch. Because when you show me your game and it's a little browser game in itch, you're kind of communicating that it's a hobby project, right? And I feel less harsh about that, because if you're showing me something and going, this is my hobby project, what do you think? I'm like, cool, whatever. It doesn't really matter if it's a bit broken. If you're showing me something as a Steam demo, then that to me is communicating that you think that that is good enough to expect people to pay you money for it, right? So that's the situation where I'm going to be a little bit harsher on it. And none of that is to do with what I think is good business or like, you know, what I think works or doesn't work. I'm not interested in like coming up with hacks for you or like all of that stuff of like trying to play the how Steam works and visibility on that platform. I don't care about that stuff. I do this channel because I like video games. I like making video games. I like seeing what other people are making, and I like seeing when they're making something interesting. I'm not interested in like helping everyone to make a video game and release a video game who's ever wanted to do that, because I'm interested in like seeing interesting and good video games, not just like helping everyone who has a pipe dream of maybe making a game someday make one. So that's like a fundamental difference between what I do on this channel and what the approach and ethos of this channel is versus everyone else. So when I talk about what I think you should do on Steam, that's not necessarily me giving you advice about what you should do as a business person or whatever. It's more like an ethical stance and like and an ethos about what I think is right. But all of that said, generally the way to do business well is just you get down to the basics of what business is. It's an exchange of value. And if what you do is very clearly centered on the user and like, you know, giving them a game that fulfills a fantasy, making sure that it aligns with their expectations of that type of game, then you probably can't really go wrong, because people do well, or especially people that do people that consistently do well, right? I'm not talking about people that just like put a thing out there, luck out, make some money, go and hide somewhere. And people that actually do consistently well in any sort of career are people that just show up consistently and build trust with people, which you do by like not being a shyster, and you do by like committing to providing a particular thing and then doing it. So sorry, a big old rant to end the stream on. I'm just going to see if there's any questions, and then I will go on to the be right back screen. 42 said, is running this thing sustainable for you? You seem to pour a lot of time into it, and I doubt you get much financially for this. I mean, this is what so YouTube doesn't really make any money on its own. The income from AdSense on this channel is between about £500 and £600 a month, which is like a third of my rent. But we have a decent Patreon community, and that is enough currently. I'm sort of earning enough now that I was as a senior university lecturer through Patreon. So, you know, that's a communitarian thing. That's where I've kind of shown up, started doing a thing that is initially free, doesn't really make me much money, and then told people, I want to do more of this. You seem to like the fact that I'm doing it. Let's have a paid fan club. That's what Patreon is, basically. And then over time, I've developed like additional bonuses and stuff for the Patreon. That's kind of how Patreon works. The benefit of it is it allows us to do stuff like this that isn't directly profitable, just because people want it to exist. And that means that I don't need to necessarily play YouTube's game of like everything I do needs to be the most attention grabbing thumbnail or title, and then it has to have like a underpants sponsorship for me to like eke away a living at it and stuff like that. So yeah, what we do, this is like the core of the channel really, and then there's other stuff that we have like video essays and podcasts and stuff. But the reason that I built the channel around this kind of format of people sending in stuff they were working on and us having like a feedback session was that is, in my mind, the correct way to learn game design, is to be getting feedback on what you're doing and engaged in some sort of community where you can also give feedback on what other people are doing. Because even just like thinking about someone else's game, when you see someone else's game and you go, oh, especially if it's in a similar design space to what you want to work in, and you see it and you think, oh, that's not very good, I would have done it like this, I would have done it like that, that kind of strengthens all your intuitions for when you make your own things. And I have a kind of friend local to me who did very, very well on YouTube. He had like a photo manipulation course with like a kind of Photoshop kind of course, and he was always encouraging me to do this. But his advice was basically, you know, you set up a YouTube and then you use it to funnel people into doing a digital course. And I didn't want to do that because I don't think that's a good way to learn game design, you know. I think and this was always something we were being encouraged to do in university teaching as well, was like just make more of your teaching into like a video of you talking. Yeah, that's okay for the basics of something, like just to learn the basic principles of something, but at some point you have to be involved in a back and forth. And the whole point of this channel is to encourage people to kind of get out of their shell a little bit and make sure that make sure that people understand that making a game is about making the thing that happens when someone plays it, right? And that means that you shouldn't just be like working in isolation right up until the point of launch and then going, hey guys, what do you think? Right? Yeah. No, I don't take any emails. There's a form on the site for stuff like that, but anyway, that's enough for today. I am very tired. Thank you all for joining today. Thanks for all the questions. Go and check out the games if you found them interesting. Wishlist the ones on Steam if you found them interesting. The first one was called Tribes. The second one was called King's Downfall. And the final game, the itch.io strange ASCII 4X game, was called Kingdom Painter.